跟住落嚟咧，我哋轉翻個。
Next, we're going to switch channels. After looking at different live videos, we both have audience online and also we have live dialogues at the venue right now. Up next comes sections number 4, which is the section right before our lunch break. We are very honored to have Ms. Grace Cheng. She is the director of Art and Hospital as well as Community Art Network. We're going to have a dialogue between Grace Cheng together with Kurt Chen, who is a committee member of Hong Kong Art School. I would like to give you some introduction about Ms. Grace Cheng. She is the director of Community Art Network as well as Art Hospital, and she is also the vice chairman of Art of the Disabled Association in Hong Kong. She truly believes that art can bring infinite possibilities to lives. Therefore, she always acts as an agent to bring arts into different communities. Grace, thank you. Art and Hospital established in 1994, and we believe that the healing power of art shall be able to bring ease to those who are in need both physically and mentally, so that those in the hospital can connect with arts. I want to introduce to you some of our previous projects. A large portion of our work is to reform the environment of the hospital. As you can see at the bottom two, usually we will work together with the staff at the hospitals. We will do a lot of research to find out the needs of the patients as well as the medical staff. For example, the bottom two pictures, for those who need to stay in bed, so they can't really leave their beds. The only thing that they can see is the ceiling. They can only look up. So we designed some arts in the ceiling for them so that they will still have some joy looking up. And other portion that of our work is some frontline workshop. We have invited some artists to go to the hospital with us and work together with the patients. We believe that such frontline works are very important. If we want to connect people with arts, and the artist is a critical element as well as arts, and the participants are also critical. Therefore, apart from different types of workshops, we will also conduct various types of seminars so that we can bring the concept of art in hospitals to various places. Well, this is something that I constantly think of. Sometimes we will speak, but art is a medium without speeches, and it is a powerful means of communication. As you watch the video clip just now, you can see that the elderly said that they have never created anything before, but once they create, they love creation. This is such a simple joy that brings people together. When Yava Lam contacted me, she said that she wanted me to share about the healing power of arts under the topic of ICH. So I started to think, what are the connection between the two? As I reflect, I recall a previous project that we have done with the Museum of History. It is a project, again, supported by Jockey Club for the elderly. We will take the elders to the Museum of History and to learn about the Hong Kong stories. We will visit parts of the exhibitions which is recreating some of our pasts. So as we visit, we realize that a lot of elders will recall all sorts of memories. They can find traces of their lives there. Well, to me, there are many things that I've never experienced. I have to listen to them, what they did before. They're telling me how do you have a prescriptions for Chinese medicines, and if you have to create a Cheng then what do you need to do? Or when you visit the grocery stores, how do you order rice? How do you buy different things? It is a process that I can understand only through the explanations. As we look at the recreation of the past, they are always the ones who is the most excited. As they get excited, then you will understand that when they share in excitements, there are a lot of pleasures and delight. But how can we make it concrete? So after the visit, we will create art with them. What exactly are we creating? We will invite some artists. So they will take inspirations from the exhibits and extract the essence from it. So this is what I recall when Michelle Lam contacted me that I can share. As we create, very often the artist will select some elements that is related to ICH. It makes me feel that in our daily lives, well, when the elders are looking at that, it is their memories. However, if we mingle it with lives and arts, then it's not just history. It is actually the face of the lives in the past. Most importantly, like in the intangible cultural heritage, how can we preserve them? As I was listening to the various sharing this morning, of course, I was observing a lot of craftsmanship that is precious and wonderful. But people is very important. These participants are telling us that what are the elements that they have spotted and they want to create further on. For a hospital, art in hospital, we are trying to show that how art can bring along positive energies. In the past, when we work together with the elderly, especially when we're painting, they will always say, I've never painted in my whole life. Don't bother, I'm not interested. But as you can see on this slide, well, I think you have all heard about the tiles of months. So I was giving them an idea. Why don't you create your own tiles of months? Then upon this instruction, they ignore my instructions. They just create on their own. I said that you can make use of your own facial features to create. Then they no longer try to reject us by saying that they don't know. They just grab the paper and they start creating arts. So you can see, actually, they are not that distant from arts as long as you add in the elements of history, culture, and their own lives. Here is another activity that they like. That is to create some decorative tiles. Very often, there are messages on those tiles, and that is the message that they will tell on their own. As you can see, there are happiness, family, and prosperity. These are all the wishes that they have. Originally, a lot of them would not take the initiative to take part in artistic activities, but now, as we are organizing some more decorative or more crafts-like activity, they will be very active in the participation. Here you can see dim sum arts. We are unable to eat real dim sum at the Museum of History, but when they create dim sum arts, they have become a master of their own. They create different models and shapes. As you can see, there are all sorts of dim sum that is created by them. And it is an expression of their heart, and not our instructions. As I said, we will first pay a visit to the museum, then we'll come back and create art. From my perspective, starting from the visits, actually the creative process has begun. From the sharings to the encouragement. as we ask them to create dim sum art, we will teach them how to make use of the clay, and then they will start to share between them and say that, oh, last time when I visited the restaurant, I have eaten this and that. Let's create this together. They will start discussion on their own. This is a sense of art that stems from their daily lives. It transforms from something that is restricted to art class to the daily life. Everyone can take part in this creative process. In the exhibitions, a section of it are talking about the industry in Hong Kong, and there are a lot of water bottles. When we are creating the water bottle, we are only using cotton to create a bottle on their own. At the beginning, we were not sure if the elders will be interested. Well, for them, they don't want a real water bottle. Instead, they want to create a water bottle that is totally unique to them. It has become a very popular item. I thought that they would want something practical, but it turns out they really want this artistic water bottle. So as you can see, they are very creative because usually the water bottle is plain with only one color, but in their hands, they can come up with all sorts of variations and creativity. As I have shared, the elders are giving us a lot of insights. As artists, sometimes we think that we can produce a lot of creative ideas. However, in turn, the elders can make use of their previous life experience and provide us with all sorts of insights. This is one of the examples. I know that shadow puppets is one of the items included in ICH. When we created, to our surprise, they love it very much because we can't find that many shadow puppets in Hong Kong right now. But as they created, they shows how familiar they are. They will tell us all the stories that they watch in the past, and that they have come up with all sorts of variations. What we're doing is the most simple type. We have created a puppet show with just light and shadow. This show has become a gift that they can share with their families. What I enjoy most is when they tell the stories, they are telling the stories of the opera or theater stories that they have watched before. They will create their own characters and reproduce the storylines. Just now we have talked about craftsmanship and makers, something that is highly delicate. But here I see something coarse, but authentic, joyful, and also close to real life. Here is another setting of puppet show. The elderly are very interesting. If you don't provide them with any stimulations, they will just stay at the elderly center and do nothing. But now with the stimulation, they are able to pull up their hands for a long period of time. They are able to do all sorts of exercises. When we do the project of art in hospital, we realize that when the elders are taking part in different artistic activities, they will be training up a lot of the muscles. It is a very good opportunity for them because if they are interested, they will just keep moving and moving. You don't have to worry anything about them. They will tell the stories and they will be active, and they are also excited. Here is the towels of the month. You can see they can create a facial expression there, and then there is a calendar there. They can also create different types of stores. At the end of the whole program, we have launched an exhibition. We have collected the images of the elders' creation and we put together with the story. The Museum of History helped us to combine them together. And we projected within the exhibits of the Museum of History at that time. It has become an intertwining of times, and they will also feel that they have gone back to their past lives. As you can see, the person in the middle is telling the story of her past. She used to sleep on these kinds of beds, and she will explain the type of stools that they will have and their lives in the past. By the means of technology, we can put together all these so that we can live in parallels of times. In this program, what we can observe is that the elderly can teach us how to preserve the heritage, and their lives and their sharings are already the heritage. If we add the elements of arts there, we can create something beautiful out of it, and this is what we love most. That's the end of my sharing today. Thank you. Professor Chen, any thoughts? I've known Grace for a long time, and I know that she has been doing a lot of work for a long time through the program of Art in Hospital. But I think I have never listened to a clear gist of your sharing about your sharing as I heard today. Now I'm learning about all your practical examples as well as your mission. And of course, the first two slides of your presentation are talking about your work at the hospitals through the projects of Art in Hospital. And in the second part of your presentation, you're focusing on the elderlies, and you spent most of the time talking about ICH as well as your own works. You have shared with us a lot of examples with multiple layers. When I was listening to your sharing, I was thinking of a lot of questions. But as you were showing slide 15, I have questions, and then when you go to slide 20, you have already responded to the question in my heart, and now I don't know what to do. I should have told you, let's just have a chit chat together. Yes, that was our original thought. I really appreciate your NGO in Hong Kong. Well, I have to express our gratitude to all artists, because without them, there will be no art in hospitals. Yes, of course, you have to come up with a team, but that is not within the scope of discussion today. There are a few points that touched me a lot. When I see the elderly visiting the Museum of History, and also the subsequent activities. A lot of previous artistic activities are actually paying attention to an elderly who has no background knowledge about art as well. You're concerned about such background, so you will give them template and input. I have a few observations during the visits to the Museum of History. When we talk about ICH, we will always think of the state level or a certain things that has been classified as an item of ICH. But as we're talking about cultural heritage, it's something that is alive, and it is not a competition. For example, when we were at the Museum of History, we will see how people buy food and wrap it with newspaper. You might think that it is not hygiene, but this is the past. So what is being reflected in the Museum of History is something that is frozen. They have shown us some frozen artifacts there. So the audience sometimes will think, okay, I don't understand, I need to know more. But in your project, you're not just showing it to them. You are helping them to revisit and reactivate it. I think it is very important. Because how we can revisit our past and trigger our sentiments so that we would want to recreate it again. Even if I am not going to recreate it again, I have to transform such sentiments into other forms of activities so that I can produce something or to create some communications that is non-verbal, as you have said. I believe that this is quite relevant to the works of Java. Or as Dr. Leung had shared, after taking the elderly to the exhibitions, you have to plan programs for them. And from your perspective, you can see that they are taking the initiative to create a relationship with the ICH. On one hand, the young people are helping the elderly, and on the other hand, the elderly are helping the youngsters as well. They help them to make connections. Through these connections, they may not be creating arts, but maybe new forms of lifestyle. Like the young people, a lot of them are going back to the farms. They want to return to agriculture. So if you are performing as an agent, if you ask what are the roles that you want to play, I believe that there are many spaces to fill. Yes, one thing that you have mentioned is very important, that is to passing on. At the exhibition, we have shown a lot of works of the elderly. And the contact point is for the elderly to bring their families to come visit so that we can see different generations gathering together. It is not out of our requirements, but then the elder will naturally become a docent and share the works, like the dim sum, like the puppet, share the show, etc. So they would be like a preacher. They would be telling the stories. As we're talking about ICH, if I say, well, let's do ICH together, however, without people is meaningless. But I see ourselves very lucky. Under this program, we are enabling the elderly to reconnect with the past history and to transform them into new creation. Upon this creation, as we show them, these groups of participants will be able to tell the stories. They will be able to share what they have created. Apart from the creative process, they will also share about their history and experiences. Especially if they're sharing with the family, they will, of course, want to share some precious stories with them. I think this is something highly related with ICH. Yes, I understand. Sometimes the artist will create in the studio, then there comes a piece of art and that will be shown at exhibitions. Because there are many ways of showing art nowadays. So sometimes I would also reflect the meanings that is produced by different means of showing a piece of art. As we're thinking of a social platform, then the display or the showing of artwork is that well, for example, you have created some artwork with the elderly at a specific time and space. It is a process of interaction between your staff and the elderly. Of course, there will be something very internal. Let's say the feelings during the process of painting. So when the communications occurs, it's not just the relationship with the teacher. To a certain extent, they're also having a dialogue with themselves. It is a pathological, because they can strengthen some of their internal values. And as the city dwellers, it is very rare for us to get rid of the verbal and to get into some non-verbal communications, to have some non-physical communications. This is something invisible. But now you're showing the results of the artwork in the exhibitions. This is one of the methodologies. So how can we draw those who are not participating in the program and to help them to get engaged? For example, they are not the staff, they are not the elders. So if you are showing it in a traditional form of arts display, it will be problematic because a lot of information is lost. You don't see the process. well, sometimes maybe you will think, this is a piece of art that is beautiful in the eyes of the elderly or the instructors. But there may be some halfly created works, some works that is not deemed as beautiful, that don't get to be displayed. But it is not a competition, right? We are not trying to compete and show the most beautiful art piece. What we're focusing on is to showing the process, showing the meaning. It's very important to be seen. Because for all these projects, I don't think that you want this project to end when the physical project is finished, right? You want it to pass on. Therefore, as we think of the ways of display, I believe that there are different types of strategies, right? Would I get to revisit your exhibitions again? Yes, definitely. Well, to me, I would regard the exhibitions as a show with very good response. But as you said, I really want to think how can we to communicate the message further on. This is something that we did not think of. Well, maybe there can be some subsequent activities, and it is related to Java. As you have said, the time has changed. We are way apart from the past generations. What would be the meaning of something that we have never seen before? What is the meaning of the elderly's history to us? In your sharing, the participation of the youngster can revitalize the old things and to create something new. Maybe that is the second or the third step in the subsequent activities. Or maybe you can further extend it to the question of why. Why should the younger generation care for the livelihood of the old people? Why would they regard Yamcha as something so important? If there are young artists taking part, then they will be able to create new things. And at that vantage point, because if they want to intervene, they must think. If they don't think, they will be unable to intervene. As the artists intervene, they will create another form of art out of the verbal history of the elderly. As an artist, I will always think, if you don't do it in this way, what other ways can you try to do? I might seems to be debating with you all the time, but it is just my habit. I will always want to think of alternatives and different possibilities. So on one hand, how would you define ICH? If it is not something that is being categorized as something that is defined by the United Nations, what can it be? Is Yamcha part of ICH as well? I really enjoy the dim sum artwork that you have shown. They don't really need any teachers, but if you are painting a portrait, then you need an instructor because that is formal art. In this sense, then we are taking the definition of art in your project, art in the hospital, into something else. There is some art form that is quite convenient. I think the puppet shadow show is very good because a lot of young people will be highly interested in it, and the art of dim sum is something very relevant because they will eat it, they know how to create it, but as you provide them with some play-doh or clay, then it has become a stimulus for them because you will never be able to eat something that is red in color, right? Yes, if we are going to discuss about the power of the elderly, then we will always find out that their creation has always been something related to their lives. So how can we engage elderly in the arts? Second is the ways of art display. Shall we think of it in the framework of traditional arts, because nowadays art form has been transforming constantly. A lot of them are not shown in exhibition halls. You don't really know if they can be defined as arts because the boundaries of lives and art has been blurred. All these new changes in the art scene is enabling us to borrow from the experience of your great work in the past. Yes, definitely. We really want to extend into different forms. This is just one of our projects. We still have many types of other works. I'm constantly reflecting on the relationship between lives and art. And in this context, we are adding the elements of ICH. I believe that there are a lot of possibilities. Well, shall we stop here? We shall leave some time to the floor. Any questions? Since you have mentioned my name for so many times, I need to say a few words. I really like a certain point of your sharing. You said that when they are creating something on their own, they will put extra effort into it. Just now, in the sharing of Dr. Kuruchi, she said that there will be a sense of happiness. I engage with elderly in many different types of projects as well. A lot of elderly, they are still physically able, but they are very independent. So independent that they don't need to communicate with anyone at all. But in these workshops, there can be 20-some old people who don't know each other. But just because they have collective memory and they can share different opinions upon the same foundation of memory. So in the class, you will be listening from their opinions. And despite the differences in the views, because they're from the same generations, the conversation is highly interesting. And at the end of the class, they become good friends. And we, as teachers, we are learning a lot. We're listening a lot of things from them. At the beginning, I was saying, for ICH and craftsmanship, even arts, is it possible for these things to contribute to the society, even to the world? I was talking something on a very small scale. That is, at least to bring a sense of fulfillment to vulnerable hearts. I believe that that comes from a sense of happiness. I'm not saying that we're trying to change the whole world, but at least we, as a group of people, will be doing works of this kind, and will push it further on. Talking about the system of elitism, I deliberately put together the works of secondary school students, the internship, as well as the masters. I display all of them on the same wall. It's not just my idea. It is idea of our master, that is Betty. She agreed it very much because she said that the artwork of the high school students are very interesting. It's hilarious. She said that she got inspired from them as well. As you can see, in each generation, what we need to provide with them is just a trigger. Then they will be open to communications, whether it's on a horizontal level or on a vertical level. Generations can actually impact one another. If we can do this on only one item, well, at the moment we have 9 items in total. I hope that in the future we can push it further and deeper so that there will be more facilitations. Yes, I agree with you very much. As I recall my conversation with you on this topic, I remember you really value and emphasize one thing. You said that within the arts in hospital, we considering to add the elements of ICH, like paper cutting and different sorts of activities. Frankly speaking, I've never imagined that before. Especially in this project, what we have learned is that to the specific community, some historical information will enrich the possibility of the creation. It's much better for me getting into the room and instruct them to do a painting. Instead, I can ask them, let's do some paper cutting for the Lunar New Year. This is something that is related to your daily life. It is a helpful element. like paper cutting, when I make use of the pair of scissors, it is actually helping them to practice muscles control so that they will have different types of motor exercise that will be helpful to the health. But we need to further explore in this aspect. You have mentioned how art activates our bodies. I find it very interesting because artists make use of their body and gestures to think. That's my opinion. Yes, that's true. Once again, it comes back to your point as non-verbal communications. Well, pardon me, because I always want to link up different points together. And this point inspired me to think of sports. Putting sports in the context of competition, then you have to strive for excellence. You have to be the champion. But there's no such thing in arts. Therefore, the general public might even be easier to relate to art than sports. Well, of course, for sports, if you just want to get fit and improve your health, you can still relate to sports. But we can really think that what sorts of arts can trigger which part of our brain exercise, including the muscles exercise, etc. Yes, I want to mention that in 2019, WHO has released a report sharing evidence on how we can improve health and well-being as we engage in arts. If you are interested, I would like to encourage you to go to the website of WHO and read this report. It is talking about the multifunctions of art and not just as a form of creation. Thank you very much, Grace and Kurt. Please be seated. Well, here comes a climax of a summit today, that is lunchtime. Since our hearts are being healed, we have to get our stomach fulfilled as well. In the afternoon, we are going to share with you how food can become an item of ICH. A few reminders for all of you. If you have borrowed SI headsets, please remember to return it to us before you're leaving the theater. We will begin at 1:45 in the afternoon. And now I would like to remind you to return on time at 1:45. Wish you all a happy lunch together. See you again soon.